Hello everyone, this is Eva here. Today I have Denny be the guest for the Q&A video session. Denny is the Senior Marketing Manager at Unbounce. He works closely with customer marketing team as a part of the product marketing team. He has been in sales and marketing for 15 years experience. Today we are going to talk about what the heck is growth marketing.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. I guess my first question, I will kind of like straight to the point. What the heck is growth marketing? I hear it a lot. I see it on the job posting. We are looking for a growth marketer, growth hacker. I want you to do everything on every channel, growth 10 times by, I don't know. Yeah, like I always got so confused.
Yeah, I don't think that you're alone in that probably. Most certainly, like when I see a posting for a growth hacker or a growth marketer, that they tend to be pretty loaded, and most people posting for those jobs don't even know what they are, but they see the trend and they see the hype and they want to hire somebody that can do all of that, whatever that means. So for me, I'm definitely not a big fan of the term growth hacker. Mm-hmm. And that's not where I would say the practice is going at all. Like that's very much an old term that was invented kind of quite some time ago, which like it sounds, it's very hacky.
Yeah.
And that's not sustainable. And I would say that most growth marketers are also moving away from that term. For me, growth is a much more significant practice, which is largely around this idea of using data-driven experimentation to figure out how to improve a business's KPIs, which is that can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. But as a growth marketer, and even the word marketing in here is a little misleading. I would say as somebody that's a growth practitioner, mm-hmm. I'm focused on the full funnel, whereas a marketer is typically focused on just the top little bit of a funnel. So your awareness and maybe your acquisition and activation possibly. Mm-hmm. A growth marketer is generally focused on the whole thing, right from the very top all the way down to your churn, revenue, and retention. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at a business from a very holistic point of view and trying to figure out what is the lowest hanging fruit to improve our business metrics, with marketing as just one of the tools that we're potentially using it, and running data-driven experiments to try and improve those metrics. I think most growth marketers and growth practitioners that I've worked with would also agree that they do something similar. Okay. But there isn't like a clear definition about what a growth marketer does. And it's going to vary from company to company, and growth marketer to growth marketer. They're going to have very different definitions of what it means to them and how they do growth marketing. For me, it just focuses on that full funnel. How can we improve our lowest hanging fruit and run experiments to figure out what that actually is in order to get to that. So
cool. Can you give an example of sort of like a, day-to-day life as a growth marketer, or like what could be sort of like a project, the task on your agenda?
Yeah. Again, from team to team, it's going to like vary significantly. For myself, in the practice, especially when I was doing a lot of growth marketing in my previous role, for me, it was largely going ahead and coming up with a whole bunch of ideas on how we can improve business KPIs. Okay. And that is, again, full funnel. So in this case, we might determine that, for example, churn is our biggest problem right now. Normally, a marketer doesn't touch churn too often. That would be maybe your sales team or your support team or something like that. As a growth marketer, I'm very concerned about that. And I want to identify all of the reasons why churn might be a problem and what are all of the opportunities for us to reduce churn. So me working with a whole bunch of other teams will get together and we'll brainstorm a bunch of ideas that we can go ahead and try to see what we can do to reduce churn.
Okay, so let's say you identified a problem, in part of this funnel. How could you structure the experiment, in like 3 months term, 6 months term, like how would you decide what is the budget should put into? How would you decide which team should be sort of be part of the experiment, right? Because when you work cross team, it can be tricky.
Yeah.
It can be tricky because, you might accidentally step over and somebody else toe. Maybe, like marketing wants to own that part, but sales might also want to own that part. It's always a little bit, it can be a little bit of tension between different departments.
Totally.
Like, how could you sort of go about this?
Yeah. I think from a tactical point of view, and to be honest, most companies do not have growth teams or departments or growth marketers. Usually you would be like a marketing director or a marketing executive or just your sole marketer in your startup, right? And you need to start approaching your marketing programs with an experimental mindset, I think is what it is. And so what I would normally do if I was in the shoes of somebody that was trying to be a little bit more of a growth department or a growth marketer is I would allocate a percentage of my time and resources, my budget, to experimentation. And you can do this like whether you're a small company, whether you're a big company, doesn't matter whether growth is even on the radar in terms of an initiative that you want to take on. This is just good agile marketing, which is running experiments, making sure that you have the resources to run those experiments, learn from experiments, and take that and see if you can scale it to your full marketing programs or your full product programs and all that kind of stuff. I think that growth can be an incubator for just good ideas within the organization. And then you try and work with other parts of the organization, your product team, your engineering team, your customer support team, to try and see if you can take those experiments and scale them to a larger initiative within the organization. So that's probably how I would start if I was in any organization, I think.
Yeah.
Two ways to maybe approach marketing in this sense. And I can kind of share a story of the two ways that maybe I could have done a project that would have been a good example of that. So back when I was working at a startup, we were hungry for growth and very fast growth. And there was a request to me from my leaders to basically invest a ton of money into something that we'd never done before, which was event marketing and experiential marketing. And we came up with this idea that we were going to hand out coffee on the streets and kind of do an activation for a financial product. We were going to have stamps on the cups and all kind of stuff. So it was going to be a branded coffee cup that we were handing out, and we would have conversations about money essentially. And we had a really kind of cool campaign that matched up with this, which was essentially showing people that we'd be able to save them equivalent of 3 cups of coffee per day if they signed up to our service. And then of course it shows that on the cup, and you can sign up here on our website. And so initially when we started talking about this, we were looking at investing a significant amount of money to do this across Canada. And we were a brand new startup. That was a big chunk of budget. And I was really wary to do that because we had no information on whether this was something that was going to work or not. And so I went back to the team and basically said, maybe we should try this at a smaller scale and run an experiment and see what this would take. And so we quite literally, I went out to Starbucks, I picked up a whole bunch of coffee crafts. We built a smaller little table that we could bring out onto the street and go in front of public transit and start handing out coffee. And so it's just me and the team and the CEO and a little bit of a dress up. And even our CEO was basically, she made aprons for us, with our branding on it, all kind of stuff. Back at home, it's true scrappy, not crappy. That is not the right word. Scrappy startup style.
Yeah.
And this didn't cost us much. This was under $1,000 that we'd spent on it, maybe even under $500 possibly. And when we did this, can you guess how many activations that we did? We probably handed out let's say in one day, 500 coffee cups, maybe 1,000. How many activations do you think we got from that? Do you think?
How many cups did you guys hand out?
Somewhere between 500 and 1,000. We'll say 1,000.
Okay, you asked me, probably didn't go that
Take
well.
a guess.
20?
Less.
10?
Less.
5?
Generally speaking, we would get like maybe 5 activations. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so
we'd
5
have 1,000 cups.
1,000?
And we would get 5 activations.
And how much was the investment roughly? If you count everything, labor.
Everything inclusive was like including labor and all kind of stuff. We were definitely like maybe around like $3,000 or something like that we spent on this, right?
Okay.
So it wasn't crazy. Startup money, that's a lot still though.
Yeah.
But had we gone ahead and spent like $100,000 on this and did this all across Canada, I would have imagined that the results probably wouldn't have been great for us. And there was a good reason for that. It's because we were too early in the market. Like we were too innovative of a product for mass adoption for Canadians. And there was a very specific market that was interested in this. And like they were the ones that were coming up and wanting to chat with us and have like coffee with us and like really talk to the CEO and all that kind of stuff. And there was an interesting thing that came out of that, which was all those people had something that was very a common factor to them. They were all very technical people. Like they were often like computer engineers or engineers themselves, and doctors or lawyers or whatever it may be. And if we did this across Canada, honestly, I think it would have been a total failure. It would have been a waste of. We wouldn't have gotten the ROI out of it that we wanted.
Yeah.
But doing this one event, this scrappy style, we learned so much from that and about the customers that we should be going after initially, and who this mattered to, and the conversations that we had on the street with this, that we definitely got the ROI out of this small measly $3,000 that we spent. And we knew that we weren't going to do an event like this again for some time until we were at a different place in the market, where the market had shifted. But that is ultimately, I feel like, the two ways that you could do marketing. And often like you'll see companies that are constantly doing this, and I've been guilty of this before, where I get a big piece of budget and I go and spend it, and we clearly don't get the ROI out of it because we haven't done our homework first and learned from maybe smaller scale versions of that. So I would look to do this on a regular basis with new channels, new ideas, new opportunities, partnerships. Like how can we do this at a small scale first to see if this is something that works or doesn't work? And if it does work, how do we move this into a regular marketing program?
Gotcha.
And in the very least, you'll learn so much about that can feed back into the product that you're building or whatever it may be. And here we discovered who our customers really were, which
so it wasn't really like a failed campaign. It's
it
just
wasn't
maybe
failed.
for that
No.
purpose.
Yeah, exactly. So
no, that makes sense.
growth marketing for me is figuring out what works and doesn't work.
Okay.
It's about learning. It's about experimentation. So that way you can take what you learn from that and move it into something that is going to be meaningful and sustainable for the business itself, right? The problem is with most marketing is that we do it waterfall style, and we don't learn quickly enough, and we invest into things that aren't going to move the needle and aren't going to move the business, and you learn that $250,000 later, and meanwhile you're shutting down your doors, right? And so this is especially important for small startups. No,
I agree. I especially like the fact that you mentioned that test something quick at a smaller scale, smaller budget, because that's kind of like my belief and philosophy in terms of the paid acquisition as well. Rather than let's put 50K, 100K right off the bat, do like 3-6 months. Why don't we try something smaller just to see? It's not necessarily like let's get the leads right off the bat, let's get the sales right off the bat, but it's more so let's see if the channel is gonna work, what does the message work, and then adjust it accordingly.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's huge for channel testing, especially. There are so many channels that you can try. And to be honest, like when you're starting a business, it's very rare that you truly know where your audience already lives. And so you need to go out and experiment a bunch of different things, a bunch of different places to figure out where that audience lives and where you're going to get your best ROI. Most companies get most of their business from only 1 or 2 channels. And if you choose the wrong channel and you sink too much money into it, you will lose as a business. And so the quicker you can learn where your audience is and double down on that or triple down on that, then I think the closer you'll get to a growth state. So
awesome. That has been really helpful. I guess I will wrap up this conversation with sort of like my last question. Like if a company kind of wanted to start with, kind of try out the growth marketing, try out the this type of working process, what would be the suggestion you wanted to give?
Yeah, again, I think it goes a little bit back to what I was saying before. I think any company can start doing sort of a growth practitioner style just by starting with agile marketing. That's probably the most important part.
Yeah.
Start by looking at your marketing programs and see how you can allocate a percentage of your time and energy and budget to running regular experiments and keeping in mind that the purpose of this is learning and not necessarily getting ROI out of it. And by doing that, you'll figure out what works and what doesn't for your business. At any point in time, even if you're in a business that like has a clearly established business model, the market shifts, the market changes and all that kind of stuff. And so it's important that when you're starting a business that you're constantly being curious about what is possible and what's not, right? And you're better off trying channels that are completely differentiated and unsaturated than you are just copying everybody else and what they are with their business. But allocate a portion of your budget to running experiments so that you can learn, giving the space for failure in that as well too.
Yeah.
And taking what you learn and then figuring out how to scale that up.
Okay.
Once you've done that, then you can start asking the question, well, how do we start doing this for our product or our service or our customer marketing or our churn, whatever it is that is a part of your business, depending on the type of business that you are. How do we start doing this in a full funnel as opposed to just maybe our marketing portion? So
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for the tip. I think now I have much better understanding for growth marketing. I wouldn't be like, what the heck it is anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm the only person who kind of got confused with those.
Well, hopefully I didn't confuse people more, but yeah.
I think it's just like you said, it's more of a process. It's more of a way of thinking approach rather than like a hacky one-time thing, ninja-like type of term.
Totally.
Awesome. So if people wanted to learn more about growth marketing or have this type of chat, what would be the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, totally fine to connect with me on LinkedIn at any time. You can just go ahead and plug in my name there, and I'm happy to connect with anybody. Or if you want to send me an email, then you can send me an email. It's my first name, last name, dennyhollick@gmail.com. So
awesome. Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.